Hey guys, let's get straight to the point. Today's video is going to be a quick one because I just want to show you guys how I usually color grade my footage after filming using the Sony A7IV in SLog3 in DaVinci Resolve. So that's why this video is going to be really casual, just me talking about how I color grade. I have my MacBook connect to two screens right now. I'm recording the screens with all the notes and also the tools. And I also have a reference monitor at the top where I am actually looking at a bigger picture, but I will show you the footage before and after basically color grading. I'm so sorry that you might be hearing some loud traffic noise because I'm editing in my room and I have a lot of traffic noise outside of my room. So that's why I'm sorry if you guys are annoyed by that. I'll try to use the voice isolation on either Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve to isolate my voice so you don't hear the traffic noise. Anyway, let's get started. So today I went to film a fitness video with my friend and I really liked the footage. And the lighting was super great. We had some really nice big windows on the left-hand side of my friend's face. You can see that this footage is basically the hero shot that I'll be using to color grade this entire project because everything was basically filmed in the same area with the same color, white balance, and also same lighting. We used only natural light. I was so surprised that I did not have to use any artificial light. I brought my light, but we didn't use it. We didn't even use any bounds or anything like that because it was an overcast day and the sunlight was super soft going on the side to my friend's face, and you can see that it's creating this really nice contrast on her face. Let's jump straight into the settings of my DaVinci Resolve project. Basically, I follow a lot of people's recipe, you can say, when it comes to the settings of my project. When you go to master settings, you can see that I was filming in 1080p. As I said before, I love using 1080p on my A7IV unless I need the extra resolution, but I don't like that kind of sharpness. Anyway, it's 1080p and also the frame rate is 23.976 because Sony cameras, they don't shoot true or 24 frames per second, at least not the A7IV. And when it comes to color management, you can basically just pause the video and copy exactly what it is, because this is what I've been using. A lot of people are using, I think, DaVinci White color gamut. I haven't used that yet. And another disclaimer is I am not an expert when it comes to color grading. I'm just going to show you guys how I color grade all my projects so far. All my friends and clients love it, or at least they tell me they like it. And I'm really happy with the results that I'm getting. So I'm just going to stick with the settings here right now. In the future, if I explore other settings, I will let you guys know. So if you guys can just pause the video and copy your settings, that's fine with me. Here I have my screen recorded. I have all the scopes on the right-hand side. Usually I don't need everything, but if you guys want to see, let's say, the skin tone color or anything like that, or if I adjust the skin tone color, I will show you guys the vector scope, but I am just going to move it to the side right now just to make sure that I have enough real estate on the screen. My timeline screen at the bottom, it's a really wide monitor, so it might be really wide. I'll try to figure it out on in Final Cut Pro when I edit this video and make sure that you guys see the whole thing and I can zoom in on specific parts when I need you guys to pay attention. So here I have all the clips on my timeline, but I'm going to choose this one because I love the angle, the lighting, and all the settings of this shot. And I'm just going to basically use Alt S to add notes. I usually would add like 7 or 8 notes. It really depends on the project. If you want to go like isolate the skin or like isolate like certain area of the shot, then you might need like more notes. Again, this is going to be really basic because I'm not an expert. What happened is here I will have 3 notes at the end. Right here, the first one or the one like the second one before the last one, I'm going to rename it. And this is going to be the color space transform. I'm basically transforming the SLog3 footage from the A7IV to a Rec 709 or Rec 709A specifically if you're using a Mac. That actually works a little bit better because after you convert it to just Rec 709, it's going to be really contrasty for some reason when you move it to another display or even play back on like an iPhone or iPad. So if you start off with Rec 709A on a Mac, it's actually already really contrasty. So it will tone down the contrast when you are editing or color grading. So that's a good thing. The next one, I'm going to call it LUT. This one, I don't usually use it that often unless I want to go with that film look, but I did not start off with using LUT when it comes to color grading. I never used a LUT before when I first started. So I would prefer or recommend you try not to use a LUT to begin with, because I don't know, like if you rely on a LUT and one day you don't have access to the LUT, then I don't know what you're going to do. This way, without using a LUT, I am actually okay to color grade using other software, let's say Final Cut or Premiere Pro. So that way I don't have to rely on a specific LUT. Of course, you can download them, but I try not to use it. The last one will be grain. So film grain, it's up to you. You can add film grain or not. If the client or your friend wants to have a cleaner image, then sure, don't add the grain. And sometimes like noise can look like grain already. Let's say on the darker part of the image, you can see that there are some noise already. So if your camera can capture clean noise, good for you, that they can actually look like grain. But I always like to add some extra grain. So here I'm going to search for grain and I'm going to add it. Nope, not grain. Oops. Color space transform. That's the first thing I would do. Sorry, I was talking about grain. But anyway, I'm just going to add this to the node. So here I have a color space transform node right now. I can use timeline because my timeline settings is basically whatever that's gonna, input from the original footage. But just in case, if your settings is kind of not what you want, or if it's not acting correctly, you can actually find your own camera input space. And that is S-Gamma3 Cine. And input gamma, I will choose, whoops, where is it? SLog3. Already you can see that it's converted because my timeline is set to Rec 709. But of course, you can do it manually under output color space. Again, I'm not an expert in terms of like color grading. When it comes to color grading, I'm still really young. So if I'm doing anything incorrectly, I would appreciate your comment or like suggestions in the comment section below, but please be easy on me. I am really not an expert at this moment, but let's learn how to do it together. I will choose Rec 709 and output gamma, I will choose Rec 709A. Let me show you Rec 709 first. So Rec 709, nothing is changed because that's what it's supposed to look like in my project settings is Rec 709. But if I change it to Rec 709A, you can see that it's already really contrasty. So this way, I know that I need to tone down the contrast of the image just to make it look nicer on, let's say, again, iPhone or iPad, because a lot of people have Apple display, iPhone, iPad, they're usually tuned to show a contrasty image. So that's that color space transform. I'm not going to use a LUT at this moment. I'm just going to show you how I correct the image, and grain, I'm going to do it later. The first note, usually I'll put down NR for noise reduction, but in this image, I think it's pretty properly exposed. You can see that in the waveform monitor, the parade, we have a pretty nicely exposed image. The darkest part of the image is dark, but still you have information there, and the highlights are quite protected. I try not to let the highlight clip on my A7IV. As I said in my previous video, somehow it gets clipped quite easily, even in SLog3, but I wasn't clipping any highlights, so that's fine. The second one, I will usually use it for white balance. The third one, I'm just going to tell you guys what I use with the nodes first. It's exposure. The third one is contrast. I usually do contrast before saturation because when you add in saturation, I mean, when you increase the contrast of the image, it increases the saturation as well. So I'll do that saturation after. I'm going to move these nodes down and I'm going to add another one. It really depends. Again, if you need to add sharpness to the image, you can use one single node for sharpness, but I don't think I'm going to add sharpness. As I said, I don't like super sharp image anyway. So I'm going to use this one. Oh, and another thing is if you want to isolate just the skin of the subject, I would do it in this node. I would just call it skin, and then I can play with exposure, saturation. I can do HSL to change up the hue of the skin tone. But anyway, this one I'm just going to call it look. Sometimes I label it 1, 2, 3 because I might do adjustment behind it or after I create certain looks. So I'm just going to call it look 1. All right. So the first thing I would do usually is to white balance it to correct it, but it looks pretty balanced already, to be honest with you. I'm not mad with this color tone. The shirt, of course, the tank top, it's not pure, like in this image, it's not pure white, but it was quite white in real world. So I can make it a little bit warmer. Of course, you can use your dropper, the qualifier, to find out where the color or which part of the image is displaying certain color. If I put the dropper onto the tank top, you can see that on the parade, it's showing that it's still not exactly white, but because it's a creative choice, I usually don't really mind if it's a little bit off-white. As long as it looks good, I'm not super picky on that. But if you want a super clean image, make sure that the whites are pure white, blacks are pure blacks. And that's how I would correct it. But I'm not actually mad at this image. I'm actually liking it a lot. I'm just gonna see if I can change the tint to make it different. If I move the tint to a little bit more toward magenta, then it will look a little bit more balanced. So this is a really natural look. I think this is almost exactly how I saw the scene when I was filming. So a little bit warmer, a little bit more towards the magenta. Again, this is completely up to you, and you can always use a color checker to balance the image, but I prefer using my eyes instead of a color checker usually. I don't know. It's up to you. It's a one less tool to bring. Of course, don't listen to me if you really want to be perfect. This is just how I do it. And this way I can practice using my bare eyes too. So I'm pretty happy with the white balance. Now I'm going to play with the exposure to see what we can do. I feel like the highlights are really high up already. Let's see if I can open up the image by going to the lift and lift up the shadow a little bit more so it doesn't look like pure, like super dark. Like some clients, they don't like super dark images. So just to give you guys a heads up. So I move the lift, I lift the lift a little bit, and then I drag down the exposure as well. Oh, by the way, I just started to add in a new node after exposure and between like contrast and exposure. I'll call it curve. Some people, they use this curve tool to basically adjust the exposure, but I like doing it like separately as a separate tool. On the curve, you can draw any kind of lines you want to increase or decrease the contrast, play around with like what part of the image you want to show a little bit more. It's completely up to you, but I'm just going to draw a really basic S curve and maybe lift the shadow by a little bit, like the darkest part of the image. But watch how when you do this, this point needs to be lifted because it will make the image again darker than some people like. Now I'm going to go to the contrast, and I usually will add in just a little bit, not too much, because the Rec 709A conversion is already making the image super contrasty. So this is before, this is after, super subtle. To me, I don't like making super big changes because it depends on the codec that you record. On the A7IV, I'm always filming at 10-bit 422 when it comes to color bit rate. I think that's a really robust color codec that I can use on the camera. That's the highest one anyway. So I always use that, but if you only have a camera, if you have a camera that only records, let's say 420, that's less color, and then 8-bit footage, you will not want to mess with the color too much because it will start breaking down to like bands and then like blocks and like blobs and stuff. So it's not going to look good. Saturation, I think this is pretty cool without that much saturation, but I'm just going to boost it and take a look. Actually, well, it's not bad. So if I move, excuse me, if I move the saturation up by a little bit, I'll show you the before and after. This is before, super moody, completely up to you. Some people even tone it lower, but this is after adding in the saturation. I'm really happy with this actually. And if you want to deliver a normal looking image, I think this is not bad. After adjusting the white balance, you pretty much don't have to do anything. As long as you have something that is like quite pure white in the image, then you can use it as a reference. If not, use a color checker or a piece of paper. It's fine too, like a white piece of paper, it will help. So I'm pretty happy with the image without even doing any creative look. So if I play back the image, it looks really good. It's a little bit contrasty to some people's liking, but I kind of like it because I like moody kind of look. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. But just in case if you want to have a creative look, I'm going to show you what I usually do. It's a typical teal and orange kind of setup. I'm going to go to the lift. I'm going to add in a little bit of a cyan in the lift. Don't worry, I know it's affecting the skin tone, but usually skin tones are in the mid-toned area, so I can add back the orangey kind of color onto the skin tone, and that way it will look a little bit more balanced. So this is before, this is after. So the skin tone after adding in that tiny bit of orange, it makes it a little bit healthier. It really depends on your camera, and it really depends on the skin tone of the client, of course. But here I can tell that it's quite dramatic adding in that orange into the mid-tone. But of course, it's also affecting the shirt. If you can take a look, this is before. Before it was kind of green, to be honest with you, but now it's with the magenta or a little bit of an orange added to the mid-tone, it actually makes it even pure white more pure white compared to before, so it's not bad. But this is still not a really creative look. This is not like a really strong creative look, but anyway, I think I'm happy with this. This is quite normal, to be honest with you. But of course, depends on the codec, again, of your camera recording format. Don't go too crazy with the footage unless you know that it can handle that much of color grading. If you're recording raw, you can probably do it like even more, like a 12-bit raw. But this is really good. So if you want a normal look, that's how it looks. I'm not sure if this is the right way to do it, but I will usually add in another note if I want to, just in case, create an actual creative look. I'll use an look to, and I'll go quite heavy on the color wheel again. Yep, so I'm just like eyeballing it with my reference monitor. Yeah, so I added in a little bit of a blue tone to it. This is before, super natural kind of looking. This is after, a little bit moody. I really like that moody look. If you are doing something moody. So don't do it if you are not creating something moody. Like don't just follow your gut feelings. Talk to your client and make sure that you guys are okay with that. Like make sure you have a good communication between you and your client. And the last note I am going, by the way, this is usually how I color grade it. Like that's pretty much it. I don't do too heavy of a color grading unless the project requires it. And if I need to go deeper, I'll go like isolate the skin tone and everything. But anyway, I'm going to add in some grain to the last note. And again, this one I learned it from YouTube, like other channels. So, but it looks great. I usually choose the 35mm 400T grain, and when you add it in, you won't see anything because the grain size is toned down to nothing. You just need to boost it up a little bit. I usually will go about like 0.3, and I will increase the grain strength a little bit, just to make sure that you can see the grain. But if you are watching the video on an iPhone or an iPad, like a smaller screen, it will get like really like compressed, not compressed, but it'll be zoomed in or sized down to fit that screen, and you won't be able to see a grain anyway. I don't even think you can see it right now on the screen or the screen recording, but anyway, I added in. So this is before. I'm gonna like punch in really quickly. So zoomed in. This is after. You can clearly see that I've added some really nice grain, and it's not like color noise kind of grain. It's like pure whatever color that is behind it. I know some plugins you can add in even better grain, but I think this is good. So again, this is after, before. After, it adds in a really like nice texture to the image. Yeah, I think this is really good. It is not normal looking. It is not like a natural kind of look. It's a little bit more on the creative side. Don't go crazy with it to begin with. Your client might not appreciate it. But this is usually how I color grade. And also, if you want to output in DaVinci Resolve, where you have like the black bars at the top and bottom, just to make it a little bit more like CinemaScope type. How you do it is you go to timeline, output blanking, and you choose your ratio. But just to keep in mind, if you export with the blanking applied, your image will have the black bars at the top and the bottom forever. Basically, it's embedded in the image that you're outputting. So let's say I just want 185. That looks pretty cool, like a tiny little black bar at the top and the bottom. But sometimes I'll go really narrow to 235, maybe not 2.4 to 1, because that's super, super narrow. I'll show you. This is 241, and it's fine. It's not like bad, but I think that's really, really tight. On my Sony A7IV, I have 235 as the marking on the screen. So basically, I will be able to guide, like kind of have like a guidance. I try to keep my subject or whatever that is important within the guidelines, so I don't accidentally like chop someone's like hair off or like the bottom off because I don't have a marking, but I have markings set up on my A7IV or any cameras I own. Basically, I'm recording on the Sony ZV-E10 right now, and I have the marking. So I have like the marking here, and I have the marking at the bottom. By the way, I'm recording using the Filtrox 13mm f1.4. Let me know how it looks. Maybe it's a little bit wider than my liking, but anyway. So if you choose a blanking, it will be applied to your export footage. You cannot remove them. At least I don't know how to remove them. So let's take a look. It looks really cool with the black bars. It really cuts off a lot of unwanted areas. I usually added the black bars not to make it cinematic, please. Like, I don't like using that word almost right now because it's kind of overused. But I really like having black bars just to isolate whatever I want the audience to see in the middle of the screen. So this is really, really cool with the black bars. It's almost like actually a movie because of the scope, the aspect ratio, but not cinematic. I don't want to call anything cinematic without actually doing like a film work. So I really, really like this color grade. And of course, I turned off the creative look, but if I add it in, it will look something like this. A little bit more dramatic, a little bit more contrasty, and not contrasty, but I added some colors in the shadows. So a little bit different, completely different tone. So let's say if I really like this look and I want to apply it to other images, of course, I have the ability to just right click on the image, grab still, and I can use this to apply to everything. But if I want to try to see if I like it before I capture or grab a still image, I can just highlight everything, Control C, copy it, and apply it. So as I said before, the first set of notes that I used, they are more natural looking. As you can see, I only added some orange in the midtone and some green in the shadows, not a lot. This is before adding anything. SLog3 to Rec 709A, the a little bit more contrasty one. And it's a little bit greenish. I think that's a Sony color thing. I never seen this on my Blackmagic camera, but it's naturally looking like a little bit greenish. And I already applied some magenta in the white balance node, if you remember. So I don't know, it's a little bit greenish. I don't really enjoy having like super green skin tone on my clients or my friends. So I'll usually add in a little bit of an orange, magenta just to balance it out. And it makes the whole image more balanced because the wall was off-white. It was kind of creamy. And then the tank top was pretty pure white. So after adding that extra orange into the midtone, it really, really helps popping the image. I really like this look, actually. Let's play it back. Super nice. Oh, sorry. My stomach was making weird noise. It's super late right now. It's almost like 2 a.m. I don't know why I'm color grading and recording a YouTube video. But anyway, I just want to get this done right away and I want to record the process just to show you guys how I usually color grade with DaVinci Resolve. I don't know, like, show me, like, let me know how you color grade, to be honest with you. I know you might not be able to leave a link in the description, oh, not description, but comment section because you might get flagged. But if you want to share your color grading process with me, definitely leave a comment and I'll definitely check out your channel and see how we can learn from each other. Anyway, this is how I would color grade usually for my Sony A7IV SLog3 picture profile. So if you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comment section below and I can do color grading process for other cameras as well. Maybe my BMP-CC4K, I never done that, I don't know why. And maybe the ZV-E10, it's an 8-bit color camera, but it's still fine. I found ways to work around 8-bit footage that I'm not breaking the footage, basically, even when you're recording at a lower bit rate. So let me know if you have any questions or comment in the comment section below. That's it for today's video. It's a really casual one. I hope you'll like this kind of format. If you like, let me know in the comment section below as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.